Listen up, real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and agents. You're in the right place, unlocking the secrets to real estate investing and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Titanium Vault, hosted by RJ Bates III. Here's RJ.
Welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates. Today I'm sitting down with Don Costa. Don, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic, man. So why don't you take a second to introduce yourself to those of our listeners that don't know who you are, and tell us a little bit about what you do in real estate.
I do rehab work. I'm a fix and flip guy. I do a little bit of wholesale stuff here and there, but our primary business is taking something and adding value and reselling it. And I have a small company here in the California market in Fresno, California, Central Valley, California, and just love what I do.
Awesome. So how long have you been in real estate?
I have been in real estate for pretty much going on 15 years. I started in 2003 and had a good time, had a good roll, and got hit pretty hard by the crash and then got started up again in 2012.
So I know you have an incredible story. You and I have spent time together. I've recently come and visited you in your offices. And so let's talk about your business prior to the crash. You were mainly rehabbing back then. What happened during that time frame from 2007, 2008 to your business?
Yeah, I was rehabbing. I was in a market where you could pretty much just throw a rock at a house and make money. It was real easy to do it. So I wasn't really running it like a business, and I was rehabbing, and we're going over budget and taking longer than expected on a regular basis, but that made me money. That the way the market was accelerating, every time I'd go a month over schedule, I would make $20,000 more. So really just was haphazardly running the business. And when 2007-8 hit, the holes in the ship per se became very evident. The lack of systems and structures in the operation became very evident because suddenly you could hardly sell properties, you could hardly make money, and I just basically crashed and burned. I mean, in a nutshell, I proceeded over the next couple of years to basically lose everything.
So what did you do when the crash happened and you lost everything? Did you go to a different job? Did you try a different career, or did you continue down real estate?
No, unfortunately, I didn't continue down real estate. I kick myself now because, there was about a year where it was just impossible to really make money as an investor. Basically most of 2008. And then in 2009 is when a lot of opportunities presented themselves. But I was too scared to get back in. I actually opened a small office, started the process of getting back into it, and then chickened out and closed it all up. So I had basically made a lot of money the first time around, and so I had got this kind of everything I touch turns to gold syndrome. And I opened a restaurant and nightclub and started a sunglass line and had a development project going and had all these irons in the fire. And when basically when it crashed, it all fell apart. We spent probably till about the mid part of 2011 fighting to keep the restaurant and nightclub open. I basically focused in on trying to keep that open and alive. When you open a restaurant in the beginning of the worst economy ever, you have challenges, and then the nightclub component was something that the city I was in was not going to allow us to operate the way we wanted to operate. So we spent a lot of time fighting with the city. So I think basically what I did is I went into survival mode and I buckled down and tried to save the last thing I had to fight for, and spent way too long fighting for something that wasn't going to work. And at the middle of 2011, myself and the partners I was involved in decided to close it. We realized we were never going to win with the city, and that the effort and the stress and everything wasn't worth it. So at that point in time, I tried to get a job. I looked around, and if anybody remembers that time frame, it was almost impossible to get hired. I have an associate's degree. I don't have a bachelor's degree. So, anything that I was qualified for wouldn't hire me because I was undereducated. And anything that I didn't need a bachelor's degree for, I couldn't get hired because I was overqualified. Insurance companies straight out tell me that they were not going to hire me because I was worth more, and they knew the second I found something better that I would leave. So I couldn't get a job. And I always tell the story about this moment. We have these defining moments in our lives. I took my family to Taco Bell one Saturday thinking I had $90 on a credit card available, and I was going to take them to lunch and a movie and just get out of the house and just kind of relax, right? And got to Taco Bell, ordered the food, and the card wouldn't clear, and had the guy run it again. It wouldn't clear, and he basically, he as loud as it can be, he's like, "What? You don't have the money to pay?" And me being a hustler and a fighter and holding it together, and I wasn't phased. I have thick skin, but I was walking out of that restaurant with my son and my family, and my son looks up to me and says, "Dad, why wouldn't that guy give us our food?" And that was just, that broke me in so many ways, in good ways, because I realized that I had been focused on all the little scrimmages, right? All the battles, the little battles, the survival mode stuff, and just keeping the lights on and trying to, buying gas with quarters and trying to, basically get through the grocery store with a calculator and get groceries without making a fool out of myself. I'd focused on basically on the hustle, and I become, I think, content and proud of the fact that I was good at being broke. And but I wasn't living past that. I wasn't, from fear or whatever else, I wasn't going past that. And that moment when my son, I realized that I was impacting my family and, my son and because I had two sons at the time, both my sons, that I was failing them. That just, I had to take in a self, accounting, right? A whole self, what are the things I bring to the table? What do I have? What are my limitations? What do I excel at? And the two things I was good at was identifying a deal and raising private money. I was really good at identifying a deal, talking to sellers, closing deals, and raising private money. And so I had no option. I had to get back into real estate investing, and so I basically put the steps in motion to do it.
That's amazing because I have a similar story in the fact that I always share that on one of my first wholesale deals, after depositing earnest money and the option fee, I took all of my bank accounts down to $11. And that was, what you just said really resonated with me in the fact that I realized up until that point I had been content with just running a business. I had prior businesses before being into investing, and I was too busy patting myself on the back in the fact that I had started a business and I was making enough money just to pay the bills. And that moment of going down to $11 and realizing that was an all-in moment. Like this has to happen. This has to work, or I'm not going to be able to put food on the table for my family like you experienced. Some of those moments, as tragic as they may seem when they happen, they can really motivate you to proceed into much better things in the future. And I know it did that for me. Sounds like that it did that for you as well. So when you decided to go back into real estate investing, knowing that you had lost everything just a few years before, what decisions did you make differently in how you were going to run your business going forward?
Well, I mean, I think that first and foremost, I decided that I wasn't going to take anything for granted. I had this ego the first time around that you could put me in any city in the United States and I could make $10,000, in 2 weeks type of thing. I just felt like I was unstoppable. And so the first time around I over leveraged, way over leveraged, and just thought I could do everything and conquer the world. And I didn't focus on my core business as much as I should have. I had multiple offices. I started a real estate company and a mortgage company and a property management company. And like I said, a sunglass line and a restaurant. And, it's all well and good, but, I'm not saying don't do that, but, get strong at your core competency first. Make sure you build a good team of people you can count on to run that organization successfully before you move on to something else, basically. And I was kind of haphazardly. I was making so much money, I was just throwing money at everything, and I was haphazardly kind of doing all these different things. And on the surface, it appeared to be successful because we were in this ridiculously crazy economy where it was really easy to make money. So in the real world, this time around, I just decided to run it like a business. Like everything we do is on time. I used to be in projects 6 months, 8 months. Now our average turn time is 100 days from close to close, basically. And that's for full rehabs. So we run it like a business. I focused on building a solid team. I empowered my team to make decisions and, gave them the strength and the opportunities they needed to be successful. And, we just have efficiencies in place. People refer to systems all the time. We have systems and structures and accountability processes in place that we adhere to. And every time we deviate from one of those systems, we get reminded as to why it's in place, So I think that the underlining foundation this time around for me is just really running it like a business and structuring it like a business and not taking it for granted. I don't over leverage. I keep plenty of reserves in the bank. I pay myself a paycheck, that fits my lifestyle. I don't just take all the money that comes in and go out and blow it. Last time I drove, I had 2 BMWs and a truck and, everything was leased. Now I have, a 2012 GMC Sierra that I bought 2 years old and I paid cash for. There's just differences, all the furniture in my office last time was pretty much leased. This time I own every single, chair and desk and copier. So there's just differences. Like I don't owe anybody this time around. If my income stopped today, I could survive for quite a long time with the reserves I have in the bank, and I could still run my business efficiently and effectively. So last time around, the income stopped, and it was just like falling into a big black hole. So, I think there's just at the end of the day, the answer is there's just fundamental differences in belief and accountability and time and that kind of stuff.
So let's jump into, you say your average turnaround time on a property is 100 days from close to close. How are you making decisions, or what are you doing within your business to make that quick of a turnaround?
Well, accountability is one, first and foremost is setting the standard. I think that as leaders of our organization, we have to set the standard. People talk about systems all the time. I just did a big presentation at an event in front of like 600 people. People always say systems. You need systems in your operation, but nobody says like, what is a system, right? And to me, a system is basically all it is the boundaries, the expectations that you set with that your team is going to operate within, right? That's a system, and that is applied to anything. So, for instance, one of the ways we pay contractors is we pay weekly, and we pay only for work that's been completed, and we do that because we basically force our contractor to set a goal the week before. So they bill us on Friday for the work they're going to finish by the next Friday. And then we pay them that following Friday for the work completed. So we've made them set a goal for what they're going to complete, and then they do not get their check unless they've reached that goal. So that's a system in our organization that kind of forces accountability to the contractor. And then it sets us up in a position to where if they're not finished with that rehab, or that, whatever it is they need to finish by that Friday, we don't have to give them their check. And if we feel like they're not going to be able to be a good, fit for that project, we can actually pull them off that project and throw somebody else into that project, and we're not out any money. So, we build relationships, and with our vendors. That's another way we do it. We build relationships. All of our vendors we worked with for 3, 4, 5 years. We know their capabilities. They know our expectations. And so that allows us to be efficient in that manner as well. You name it. I have 2 project managers that check the projects on a regular basis and make sure that we're meeting timelines and we're meeting the quality that we need. We have standards on how often a project should be seen. We don't just leave it up to the contractor to send us pictures because pictures lie. So there's a lot of little things we do to have those efficiencies in place and to get things to the finish line. And then we have processes when we sell. For instance, when we sell, we have a criteria where we require all buyers to be qualified through our preferred lender. No matter what lender they're using to buy, they have to be qualified through our preferred lender. So we know when we accept a buyer that buyer is qualified to close. If you have multiple offers, say you have 5 offers on a property, your highest offer may not be a strong buyer. They may have a pre-qual letter from their Aunt Marge, right, who says they're qualified, but there's a couple of things that she wants to fix in their credit before she can actually get it closed. Well, we'll know that going into that, and we won't necessarily take that buyer. So when we accept an offer, we know that the chances of it closing are very strong. We're not guessing in that department. So at the end of the day, I think we try to control everything, and we don't leave anything up to guessing. And that's one of the reasons why we can do what we do.
I'm also assuming that part of this goes back to the acquisition of the type of properties that you're rehabbing as well, because one of the downfalls that you said prior to the crash was you would get in the projects and it would take longer for you to complete the rehab. Are you acquiring a certain type of property that requires a certain type of rehab compared to what you did in the past?
No, not at all. So before the crash, it was, I would shake your hand and you tell me 2 weeks and $20,000, and it would be 3 months later and it'd be 40 grand and you still wouldn't be done. And I was like, no big deal. So I was naive. I was underexperienced. I was easily taken advantage of. You'd basically say, I'll paint the house for $1,000. You go buy the paint, and I go buy the paint, and I didn't spend like $3,000 on paint to paint a 1,500 square foot house. So it was just, basically, just the inside, not the inside and outside. I'm just saying, I would be taken advantage of. I remember one time a contractor, I'd caught him basically kind of screwing me, and I made a deal with him that I would buy the paint for a house that I bought that I was going to live in, and they would do the labor for free. And so they walked me through the house, and they're like, okay, for the living room, we need 3 5-gallon buckets. And for the kitchen, we need 2 5-gallon buckets. And for the hallway, we need 1 5-gallon bucket. And for the master bedroom, we need 2 5-gallon buckets. And the 2 other bedrooms, we need 1 5-gallon bucket each. And I went to the paint store. I went to Sherman-Williams, and I handed the guy the list, and he's like, so how many houses are you painting? I'm like, 1. And he's like, how big's the house? And I'm like, 2,000 square feet. He's like, you paint the house inside and out twice? And I go, what do you mean? He's like, you're buying enough paint to buy a 5,000 square foot, to build, to paint a 5,000 square foot house. And you have these aha moments. And that was an aha moment I just, look, people, even the best people in the world will take opportunities, right? They'll take opportunities. Not necessarily, they don't, in their eyes, they may not think they're taking advantage, but maybe the guy thought that since he was doing the labor for free, he deserves some extra paint, so he didn't have to buy paint for the next job. I don't know. But it goes to show that I didn't run my business like a business. And so now it's like, I know the cost per linear foot for baseboard in my market for Home Depot contractor pack out the door with tax is 61 cents a linear foot. So, and I know in my market that a very, very fair price for labor is $1 a linear foot. So I'm going to pay you $1.61 a linear foot, and I can live with that. If you're coming and wanting $3 a linear foot, I know you're screwing me. So I'm much more aware this time around, and I'm much more aware of how long something should take and that kind of thing. I know, and I'm going to hold you accountable. So if before pre-crash, I would show up to a job and, you wouldn't be there, and I'd kick and moan, and then, 3 or 4 days later, you'd show up and start working again for 2 days, and you'd disappear for a week, and I had no controls in place. I would usually give deposits up front, and so I had no recourse. Now we don't give a deposit. You start the work. We pay you weekly. If you disappear and I fire you, I'm not out any money. So I just, it's knowledge, it's experience, it's efficiencies, it's systems, it's structure. There's just differences. So what would take me 6-8 months sometimes to turn a 1,500 square foot house, then I can do that in, I could probably do that in 90 days, if it wasn't for FHA and a few other things that kind of skew my numbers. So, but it's just because now I know I have my finger on it,
Makes sense. With these systems in place now, what kind of volume are you doing annually?
We do run 100 a year. In 2016, we landed at 88. So, and we'll cross the 100 line this year. We do a decent amount of volume. It's and the volume sounds real sexy. I want to say that, for anybody out there, concentrate first on deals, making sure that the money's there. That's something we try to do. We have certain thresholds in where the numbers we want to hit that we don't cross. So, but yeah, we do a lot.
And those are all single-family rehab projects, correct?
Single-family rehab projects, yeah. We're doing more wholesale this year just because the market's been kind of crazy, and there's a lot of leads we used to throw away that we're able to capitalize on. So if we get everything to the finish line, I think we'll do 4 or 5 wholesales this month. But our core business is rehab, yeah.
Do you foresee doing any buy and holds in the future?
I do some buy and holds. I have some rentals. I struggle with rentals personally just because we refuse to buy anything unless we're getting it at flip numbers. I'm not as concerned as much. I guess the way I want to say it is I don't just look at what the cap rate is. I look at what the exit is as well. So a lot of people will be like, "Oh, you're not going to buy something that's worth $200, but I get it for $210, but it cash flows $400 a month." That's all well and good. I won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. You can do that all day long, and I'm happy for you. But I've been through this once. So for me, I have to be able to exit the project, and I have to be able to exit the project successfully if the market starts to turn. So I like to buy at deep discount. So I don't get as many rentals, I think, as other people do. But the rentals I get have, fairly sizable equity plays in them, and they cash flow really nice. The problem is with so much equity in them is whenever they go vacant, it's real easy to just rehab it and throw it on the market and sell it. So, but yeah, so we are looking for anybody who's listening who is in markets. We are looking for large apartment communities. We are going that route, so that's something we're definitely interested in tackling.
Gotcha. So I know there's, we've talked about your rehab business, but you do a lot inside the real estate investing community outside of just rehabbing properties. You're the host of the Flip Talk podcast. You have the Flip Talk podcast group on Facebook that is, I think you're close to 5,000 followers on. And then you're also creating masterminds and education programs. Why don't you talk a little bit about what it is you're doing within the real estate investing community for other investors?
Yeah, I had the opportunity, a while back to be on some podcasts, and I really enjoyed it. The first one I was on, I felt like my tongue was basically stuck to the roof of my mouth, and it was really terrifying. But after that, I kind of learned to love it. So about a year ago, I decided to do a podcast, and I take that back. Probably about 18 months ago, I decided to do a podcast, and I ended up launching it about a year ago, and it's just been really, really fun. I wanted to stay in the real estate realm, right? Like my business is done somewhat autopilot. I don't look at the properties. Like I couldn't tell you what cross street most of our properties are on, unless it was something that somebody that I have been networking with for years brought to me. I couldn't tell you where it's at, and so, which is a great place to be, right, as a business owner. But I didn't want to get distracted again. That's what I feel like was my downfalls. I wasn't paying attention to my core business last time. So I wanted to stay present. And so it just seemed like going this direction would be a good way to go. And I wanted to give back. And so Flip Talk was born, and it's been a great ride. And I've gotten to talk to some really cool people around the country, and I've gotten to make great friends like you and some other people around the country. And it's been good. So a lot of people started reaching out. You know, we're very transparent. We try to share content on the show. I try to share whenever somebody asks me a question, I'm trying to be as transparent and honest about it as I can. And people started reaching out about coaching and different things like that, which was not something that was on my radar. But I got so many requests that I decided to do it. And the way I am, and I'm sure you're the same way, RJ, I'm not going to put my name on anything if it's not like the best it can be. So we have been spending quite a few months trying to look at other education platforms and just really kind of develop the best information we possibly can, the most relevant information we possibly can. And we're very close to launching quite a few programs. We have started doing live events for investors who are basically doing deals. They already have a business and they're hitting some kind of roadblock where they can't grow. And so we started doing events that way and trying to help people kind of see, where their struggles are, where opportunities are. And from that, that's turned into a mastermind. And, we just want to, I guess it's not just about money for me, right? It's about changing business and changing lives. So one of the things that I see about masterminds out there around the country that's a downfall, it's a problem, even though they're great in a lot of ways, is they get too big. The creator of the mastermind ends up wanting to make all the money, and I want a smaller group. I want to create a mastermind of a smaller group of high level people who, one market. You don't have a competitor in your market. You can share. You can be transparent. You can be open. And so, and it's not going to be about the money. It's going to be about the people in the room. So, we do have to charge. We have costs. We did an event, at the end of August, and that was, that event alone for 2 days cost us $10,000. So there are costs that, that we do have. We need to cover, and we try to price it accordingly so we get compensated for our time. We cover our costs, but we're at the same time we're giving 10, 20 times the information than what you're actually you're getting 10, 20 times the value, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to find that balance, and I think we're having we're doing a good job of doing that.
Yeah, I was my company attended your first event in August, and one of the things that I appreciated the most about the event was how transparent you were with allowing us to see your entire operation and actually getting to meet your project managers and meeting Cass and all of the different people in your operation and hearing them share their daily responsibilities, but then also seeing how that has allowed you to not be as involved in the business and allowed you to grow the business as well as the other things that you're doing. It was inspirational for us at Titanium that we're there, but also it opened our eyes to how much work you put into growing your team and how important that team is to going to that next level. And every time I talk about that event, which is actually called the next level, I actually use that phrase because that is what you teach. You teach people within your programs how to go from, whether it's $1 million a year revenue or $5 million, you're still teaching principles to take people to that next level. And that's one of the things that I appreciated the most about the program itself.
Well, I appreciate that. And it was great having you guys here, and you guys definitely added a lot of value to the group. But I know you got to meet a few people that you're doing business with, so that's the collateral positive, right? That you've gotten to do some business. You even got a lender out of it, didn't you?
I did, and it's funny because there were 17 people in the room. You're going to be the third person on my podcast, and I'm doing regular business with two of the other people that were in the mastermind, and that alone speaks volumes about the success of the event. And And I agree. I think there is a huge downfall to a lot of masterminds when there's too many people. One of the things that was beneficial about the event is that we all had our time to talk about our business, the downfalls, but it also allowed each one of us to give feedback to everyone in the room. And I thought that was one of the best parts of it. And so, for people out there that are listening that might not be able to be a part of this mastermind, keep that in mind. If that's something that you want to grow for yourself, don't try to grow it too large. Keep it smaller to where everybody can participate and bring value to the group.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. And, one of the things that I think is important too to hit on is make sure you're in a group. What was really cool about the group that we're putting together is the levels of experience that everybody has. Like you're newer, you're post 2009, right? 2008, and I'm pre 2008, and right. We had that mix of experience, and we were able to. I remember we had a very candid conversation about kind of. Because when you're new, you have this ambitious naivety that it's a strength, right? When I say naivety, I don't mean like in a bad way. I mean it's a strength because you feel like you can conquer the world and you don't know everything can go wrong. And I remember when I had that was very powerful. But when you've been through some of the things that I've been through and people like me have been through, you have this tempered experience that's also a strength. And so being able to collaborate with each other in the room was huge. I think for me, it opened my eyes to, opportunities I may be passing on. And for you guys, kind of you get that caution, right, of, this could end, so make sure you're being prepared. And it was a really good balance, I think. So it's important to get yourself in a room with people who've been through a market cycle, if you haven't. And if you've been through a market cycle, get yourself in the room with somebody who hasn't, because, you guys can help feed each other. Sometimes it's not just knowledge. Sometimes it's that balance of gumption and gusto and tempered wisdom, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was an honor to be able to be in a room with people that went through the crash and are still in investing and found a way to bring themselves back up to even a higher level than they were pre-crash. But to get to pick your brain and basically, I was pretty candid with my questions, like, teach me what to do so I don't have to go through those struggles that you went through. I understand that the markets that my business is in are obviously booming right now, and it's not always going to be that way. There's going to be the ebbs and flows, and I wanted to hear from you guys. What are y'all doing differently? And obviously that's why this interview has focused around, what did you learn from the crash and how is your business running differently this time? And obviously you have completely changed the way that you run your business, and that's led to being able to rehab, over 100 properties this year. So,
right.
Appreciate everybody that was there at the event, and then also you for hosting it. So one of my last questions that I want to ask you, I always ask people this: what is the driving force behind you running your business the way that you do, growing a podcast, a following on Facebook, a mastermind? What is your why behind all of these things that you do for your business?
Well, I think my why is obvious. I have a family that I obviously care deeply about, and I want to make sure I provide for. I have a team that is just incredible, and I want to make sure that their goals are fulfilled, and they have opportunities that they may or may not have had without this organization that we have here today. And then my third why is my abundance of ADD that does not allow me to sit still. And, so I'm always driving to create something and do something and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of whys. I really And one of my base why my family's always been, that is the foundation, right? But getting into doing this and building this company, I didn't know ahead of time that I was going to be able to build this team with phenomenal people and see them do great things. And so that's become a huge why, to see that continue to grow. And then with the podcast, it's just, the interaction with so many incredible people, man. If you're not going to meetups and going to events and going to masterminds and getting out of your box and meeting people from across the country, or just interacting on Facebook at the least, you're really doing yourself a disservice. I spoke at an event in San Diego in front of 600 people. I'm not a public speaker. It scared the hell out of me. Now, for some reason, I want to do it 10 times because it was so much fun. But I got to hang out with people who listen to the podcast, Mel and Chris McGeady, Paul DiPozzo, and it was just, it's so cool, having these conversations with people. When we did the event, I got to hang out with you and some other people. It's just, it's really neat. And that's become a why in itself, just being able to see, people grow their businesses and their lives change from this business, and be able to talk to them, interact with them, and become friends with them. That's a huge why as well. So that's a long, extended answer, but there's just so many.
That's okay. I still laugh. When I showed up at your event, I was introducing myself to someone, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you have a podcast too." And I was blown away. I was like, "There's someone out there that listens to my podcast already?" Because when we were at your event, I was on like episode 2. And it was one of those cool moments, but it's awesome to know that there's people out there that find value in people like me and you having conversations about our businesses. And you and I were having a conversation the other day about it, and you said, no matter what level you're at, you always have the ability to teach someone else. And so even though to someone who's doing 200 flips a year, which is double what you're doing, you still have something to teach that person. Maybe it's a system, or maybe there's something else within your business that you can still teach that person, you can learn. And that's, to me, one of the values of doing the podcast and the Facebook groups, and like you said, just networking with people. So
absolutely.
You're going to be the first person that I'm going to ask this question to, so you should feel honored.
Okay. Depends on the question.
It's a very important question. Where's Don Costa going to be in 5 years?
Oh, man. I wish I had this really cool, sexy answer for you, but I don't know. That's a fantastic question. It depends on a lot of things. I just want stability for my family and my life. I want my business operating on autopilot. I want us to be prepared for anything that happens down the road. So in the direction that I'm going right now, I'm probably going to be a lot deeper into education and information and helping people out. And I really am becoming more and more passionate about changing businesses and changing lives. I'm trying to find that balance right now, because it's tough to be, engaged in your real estate investing business and running what essentially is an education business. There's a lot of moving parts to the education side. It's a completely different business, and so I want to make sure that whatever I do that's relevant, and that I'm plugged in, and I know the market, I know what's going on. So right now I think I'm just trying to find my place in that world, and how I want to achieve that, right? But I would say probably I would be more engaged in changing lives. That's really important to me, especially where I came from. I came from buying gas with quarters at a time. I pulled up in my leased BMW that I was basically behind on payments, trying to keep it from getting repossessed, and going up to the cashier with $3 in quarters to buy a gallon of gas. So, I came from a bad spot. I came from a very foolish place, and where I am now, being able to be strong and stable and successful, nobody has an excuse. Oh, I don't have money. Well, I didn't have money. I didn't have credit. I didn't have credibility. There's so many things that are stacked against me, right? And I was able to pull it off. So, I think that I'm going to be able to really affect people And I don't mean that in a conceited way. I mean that in a I can't wait to do it way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the reason why I asked that question is because my company just hit our 5-year anniversary, not Titanium, but being in business for myself as an entrepreneur for 5 years. And when we hit that anniversary, it really dawned on me that 5 years ago, if someone had asked me that question, there's no way in the world I could have predicted where I'm at today. But my answer would have been similar to what you just said. I hope that the business is running sufficiently and efficiently, and I hope that I'm providing for my family. I'm also hoping that I'm providing for the employees that I have. But now that I'm here, what I looked at is, okay, I want to make goals for where I'm going to be when I hit my 10-year anniversary. And those goals still similar, but also, like you said, now it expands outside of the close-knit circle and impacting the people, more people, a larger base of people, not just my family and my employees, but like you said, education to other investors, help change businesses. It's amazing how that evolution happens within business, where suddenly it's not so much about you anymore, but it's about how can I impact other people out there, so they experience the same kind of success that I've had within my business. And so it's funny to hear you say that, because those are similar answers that I gave to myself, where I'm looking in 10 years from, or 5 years from now, I hope I'm doing similar things as to what you're talking about and what you're growing.
Yeah, we all have our 5-year plan, right? But I mean, one of the things that you learn is this business can take you in a few different directions with opportunities. So, yeah.
So, all right, for everyone that's listening, if they want to reach out and talk to Don Costa, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can reach me at don@fliptalk.com. I do respond to those emails. You can also find us on our Facebook group, the Flip Talk Podcast. If you go to Facebook, in the search bar, you just type in Flip Talk Podcast, and the group will come up. And you can also find the podcast through iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and iHeartRadio. It's Flip Talk. You search Flip Talk and it'll pop up. And so there's a lot of ways to find me. I'm out there and just ready to do some cool things. So if you're interested in any events coming up, you can also hit me up and just put that in the subject line, and we'll get information out to you as well. So, but yeah, in the meantime, just go kill it, kick butt, and succeed.
Well, Don, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. I know I've told you privately, but you are one of the inspirations for me starting my own podcast, and it's slightly intimidating interviewing you. It's a little bit different being on this side of the microphone interviewing you, but I appreciate you taking the time and everything that you do for real estate investors out there and helping people. You truly inspire not only myself but everybody within my organization to be better people and to reach out and try to help other investors to be better in their own business.
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot for sure. So, yeah, makes a lot of this stuff that I do worth it for sure to hear that. So I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you for sitting down with us, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Titanium Vault with your host, RJ Bates III. For more info and to stay up to date, visit www.podcast.thetitaniumvault.com and on facebook.com/The Titanium Vault. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on the Titanium Vault.